Given that I wanted my media products to be combined in a manner that would encode information about the narrative of my film, I tried to edit and ensure that all of the shots within my 3 products were combined through the manner in which they encoded symbolism for the consumer. One manner in which I was effectively able to create continuity between my media products was via the emphasis I placed on Bee's hair and the symbolism that it encoded. In this video, I will explain the manner in which I thought carefully about my central protagonist's hair and how I wanted her hair to be positioned and placed within all 3 products to ensure that my products encoded the dominant reading. In terms of the reception theory, I aimed to use Bee's hair consistently throughout all 3 of my products in order to try and show that Bee was vulnerable, weak, and just wanted to shut herself away and cover her face, given that she felt so insecure because of her mental illness. I tried to establish this throughout my media products in a subtle yet consistent manner in order to encode the fact that as a result of Bee's mental illness, Bee was being forced to live her life in an unpleasant and rather self-suffocating manner. I think the manner in which I consistently did this throughout all 3 of my media products increased the chance and likelihood of the consumer being able to decode the dominant reading. Therefore, I think it is possible to say that the manner in which I was able to weave in this symbolism into all 3 of my products not only increased the likelihood of the consumer decoding the dominant reading, but also allowed me to combine my media products in an effective and sophisticated manner. I think it is possible to say that the subtle and discreet manner in which I have been able to combine my media products was really effective, given that it made my marketing campaign more professional, as my products were not only combined in a literal and obvious sense, but they were also combined in more subtle and sophisticated ways, thus meaning that I was providing different layers of meaning for my consumer, increasing the sophistication of my product. Although I wanted to use Bee's hair in order to cover parts of her face within different products that I had made, I did not want to do this too much, and it was important that you could still see her face. Therefore, I made sure that when her hair was covering her face, it was subtle, given that this would allow the audience to still see the central protagonist's face, which was really important given that the facial expressions she holds also encode a lot of meaning that the audience can then decode. It was important that I'd organised and arranged her hair so that it did not cover all of her face, given that if the hair covered all of her face, this would make my media products look less professional, given that it would not look intentional but instead look as if I hadn't thought about the hair and makeup designs, given that the hair was covering her face, her makeup designs, and her facial expressions. Therefore, in these upcoming examples that I talk about, where I will show you how I have used her hair to cover her face, it is only covering half and slight parts of her face. However, this was planned and intentional, given that, as I have previously mentioned, I did not want to cover her whole face, given that this would make the product look less professional and mean that you couldn't see her face as a consumer, thus meaning that you would not be able to decode the meanings encoded through her facial expressions. Therefore, when producing all 3 of my media products, I thought about different ways in which I could buy my products successfully through using the symbolism of the hair, which covers parts of her face in order to encode the fact that she feels vulnerable and weak. In this video, I am going to now talk about different examples from my poster, magazine, and trailer which show how I have combined my product using the symbolism of her hair and the deeper layers of meaning which the hair encodes. I will show examples and talk about the way in which I designed for these examples to be shown, thus meaning that you can see how I was carefully planning on how to combine my media products when filming and getting the photos for my ancillary products. This therefore shows how I have been able to combine my products in order to create a brand identity through ensuring that the representation and visual of my central protagonist is consistent throughout all 3 of my media products. As you can see within my trailer, I have successfully been able to capture shots and footage where Bee's hair is covering part of her face. For example, there are many different shots which show this in the trailer. As you can see from this mid-shot here, the way in which her hair is positioned so that it covers part of her cheek successfully helps to cover her face. Although this is subtle, we can infer that the fact B feels down and lonely, given that her facial expressions combined with the way in which her hair is covering part of her face helps to suggest that she does not feel good and feels very insecure within this point in her life. Therefore, the way in which I have subtly arranged her hair so that it covers part of her cheek helps to suggest and allude towards the fact that she feels very vulnerable and insecure at this point within her life. This successfully shows how I have been able to use her hair in order to cover her face and establish a theme within my trailer. This is another example of a shot within our trailer that successfully covers Bee's hair and thus helps to contribute towards the fact that I have used Bee's hair as a layer of symbolism within my trailer to encode Bee's vulnerability. Here you can see within this shot the way in which I have organised for Bee to take on a side parting means that her hair falls down the side of her face and covers her left eye slightly. This therefore means that as an audience member we can see how vulnerable and insecure she feels, given that she has chosen to position her hair in a way that will cover part of her face. This therefore successfully helps to establish that the central protagonist feels weak and vulnerable through the way in which her hair has been organised. This therefore helps to establish this as a theme within my trailer, given that I have able to combine the technique of covering her hair within many shots within my trailer. This is another example of a shot within our trailer where Bee covers her hair. Once again we have used a side parting within this shot in order to ensure that the majority of her hair falls on one side of her face, thus helping to ensure that her hair covers her face. This therefore helps to show how vulnerable and insecure she feels during this point within her life, given that her hair is covering her face, showing how she doesn't want to be seen and just wants to shut herself away. Therefore, the way in which I have covered her part of her face helps to encode this meaning. However, the way in which I have covered her face still means that you can see her facial expressions and the worried and anxious tone that she is adopting during this shot. You can also see from this shot the way in which we directed Bee to grab her hair and move it so that it was covering her face more helps to draw the audience's attention to the fact her hair is covering her face. It helps them to look at the fact she wants to move her hair so that it is covering her face, thus hinting towards the fact that her hair is protecting her from the things she is scared of. This therefore shows how we have directed Bee to do actions that will draw the consumer's attention to the hair and hopefully encourage them to decode the dominant reading regarding the fact her hair covers her face and thus helps to show how insecure and vulnerable she feels. Another example within our trailer where you can see how Bee has covered her hair is in the shot of her in her bedroom. The way in which once again we have directed for her to have side parting means that her strands of hair at the front fall in front of her face. This therefore helps to encode the fact that her hair is protecting her face, given that she wants to shut it away and not be seen by anyone. However, the way in which we have positioned her hair still ensures that you can see her eyes as a consumer. This therefore means that we are able to decode the meanings behind the fact she has her eyes closed and is looking down. Therefore, the way in which we have positioned her hair successfully encodes the fact that she feels vulnerable, but it also ensures that the consumer can still see her face, thus meaning that they are able to still decode the meanings which are encoded through her facial expressions. You can also see from the shots and footage of Bee within the car that we have also been able to use her hair in order to cover her face. By positioning her hair so that her fringe is on the side that the camera is at, means that it ensures her hair is covering her face in a more effective manner. This therefore successfully helps to encode the fact that Bee feels vulnerable on edge, given that even when going out and about she wishes to cover her face through the use of her hair. The way in which we have used this technique within many shots within our trailer successfully shows how we were able to establish this as a theme within our trailer, thus encouraging the audience to think about the symbolism and deeper layers of meaning behind this choice to encode and position her hair so that it covers her face. This therefore demonstrates the way in which I have been able to combine my media products, given that, as you will see in the next couple of minutes, I have also been able to use this technique within the shots that I got for my ancillary products. Therefore, I would say that this is a subtle but effective way in which I have been able to create continuity between my media products and ensure that my brand identity is coherent, given that the manner in which I am presenting my central protagonist is similar and therefore allows my audience to decode the dominant reading which I have encoded. Although I will not talk about these examples in detail, here are some more examples from my trailer where I have been able to successfully cover Bee's hair so that it hides parts of her face. This therefore shows how I'm able to consistently cover her face throughout different shots within my trailer to establish this as a theme within my trailer and thus encourage my audience to decode the dominant reading. As you can see from the manner in which I have used her hair to cover her face consistently through my trailer helped to establish that the hair covering her face was a theme within my trailer. The way in which I have ensured that the hair is consistently covering her face, but not so that you can't see her face, will help to encourage my audience's attention to be drawn to her face and the fact that her hair covers parts of her face. This will encourage them to decode the symbolisms regarding the fact that she wants to cover part of her face, thus helping to point them towards the fact that her hair covering her face symbolizes her vulnerability and innocence. In order to combine my media products effectively, I needed to ensure that this symbolism was encoded within all three of my media products, and therefore this is how I achieved continuity between my media products in an effective manner. On my poster, I edited two images together, meaning that I had control over how the images were going to be edited, thus meaning I was able to successfully place emphasis on the fact that her hair was covering slight parts of her face. As you can see from the base image which I took from my poster, the manner in which I had directed for Bee to arrange her hair meant that her hair was slightly covering her face within the image. This was therefore helpful given that the image automatically encoded the fact that she felt vulnerable and weak through the way in which it covered her face instantly. I once again wanted this covered face to be subtle, given that especially on the poster there is a lot of emphasis on the image and the character's facial expressions, meaning that it was vital for the consumer to be able to see the character's facial expressions within the image on the poster. Therefore, as you can see, the way I took the image meant that although her hair was covering parts of her face, I had also directed it so that her face could be seen by the consumer, thus meaning that they were able to decode the meanings regarding her facial expressions. As you can then see, the way in which I added a secondary image and had captured this secondary image so that a large proportion of her hair was covering her face also helped to establish the fact that her hair was covering her face within the poster. The way in which I had edited the image so that the strip of hair that was coming from the secondary image blended into the first image helped to place emphasis on her hair and draw the consumer's attention to her hair. This helped to ensure that the consumer looked at the fact that her hair was covering her face, thus meaning that they were encouraged to decode the dominant reading regarding her face covering her hair. This successfully demonstrates how I was able to establish the fact that her hair was covering her face also within the poster, thus meaning that I was able to encode this symbolism within my poster too. This therefore successfully demonstrates how I was able to combine my media products through encoding symbolism through the way in which Bee's hair covered parts of her face throughout all three of my media products. The way in which I established this throughout all three of my products also encouraged the likelihood of my consumer decoding the dominant reading. It encouraged the likelihood of my consumer paying attention to the fact that her hair was covering her face consistently within all three of my products, given that the consistent representation of Bee would mean that it would be something that the consumer thought to look at after seeing it represented so frequently. This therefore shows how I was able to successfully combine and establish a theme of symbolism throughout my products, thus meaning that the combination of my media products was effective. This therefore demonstrates how on my filming days I was thinking about the symbolism that I wanted to encode within my three media products and the way in which I could direct my actors to stand, behave, and present themselves in order to encode this deeper layer of symbolism within my piece. It shows how I was able to successfully take shots from my ancillary products as well as film footage from my trailer in order to encode this symbolism and therefore combine my media products in an effective manner. Furthermore, this concept of Bee's hair covering parts of her face to encode the fact that she felt vulnerable and insecure was also established within my magazine front cover. This was important given that it helped me to combine my media products successfully, ensuring that all three of my media products were combined, thus helping to inform my consumer that they were working under the same marketing campaign and were promoting the same film. In my magazine front cover you can see from the image that I have taken the way in which Bee's hair is gently but noticeably covering her face helps to establish this within my magazine front cover. You can also see from the way in which I included action shots from within the trailer whereby Bee's hair was covering her face, I have successfully been able to combine my media products through establishing this symbolism throughout all three of my products. This therefore shows how the combination of my media products was effective, given that I was able to encode this symbolism and deeper layer of meaning within all three of my products. This therefore not only combined my media products but encouraged and increased the likelihood of my consumer being able to decode the dominant reading. Therefore, I would think it is possible to say that the way in which I combined my media products through the use of symbolism was not only effective but was really productive and was representative of the way in which real media marketing campaigns also combine their media products.